Ex-wife and ex-husband's reunion takes an unexpected turn. What dark past is haunting them? Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main characters. Jessica Thompson and Ryan Harris. A reunion that neither of them had planned for. A meeting that was bound to stir up old memories. The kind of memories that neither one of them could ever fully escape. It had been years since they last saw each other, and time had done little to ease the tension that lingered between them. Jessica, now in her late 30s, was a successful businesswoman who had rebuilt her life after the messy divorce. Yet, deep down, she carried a weight from the past, the kind of weight that no amount of success could ever fully lift. Ryan, on the other hand, had also moved on in his own way. He had a new life, new friends, and even a new job that kept him busy. But there was something about the past that he could never outrun. He had tried, but some things are impossible to outrun. When they met again, their interaction was as tense as one might expect. There was an unspoken discomfort, an almost palpable barrier between them, as if the past had never truly let go of either of them. They spoke briefly, trying to keep the conversation civil, but it was clear to both of them that nothing was as it seemed. The years apart hadn't erased the lingering questions that still haunted their hearts. What had really happened between them? What dark secret were they both keeping? Neither of them had the answers, but one thing was certain: this unexpected reunion would bring more than just closure. It would unearth things they weren't ready to confront. Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary meeting. She had seen Ryan's face before, but today, he seemed different. There was a darkness in his eyes, a shadow of something unresolved, something that had been buried for years. She wondered if he was thinking the same about her. They had their own separate lives, but the tension between them remained, almost as if the universe was pushing them back together for a reason. As they sat down, a silence hung between them. Neither one of them knew how to bridge the gap that had grown so wide over the years. But deep down, both Jessica and Ryan knew that the answers to the questions that haunted them would eventually come to light, whether they were ready or not. Jessica took a deep breath as she looked across the table at Ryan. The years had changed them both, but the tension between them was unmistakable. There was something about him today that unsettled her. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by something darker, something buried deep within him. She wondered if he had come here looking for answers, or if he was merely going through the motions, trying to find closure for something that had never truly been resolved. Ryan shifted in his seat, his eyes avoiding hers as if he was trying to keep something hidden. Jessica couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had thought that time would heal the wounds, but it seemed as though the past was still very much alive, haunting both of them in ways they couldn't explain. Ryan finally broke the silence, his voice low and hesitant. "I didn't expect to see you again, Jessica," he said, his words laced with a hint of regret. "I didn't think I would ever want to see you again." Jessica's heart sank, but she forced herself to keep her composure. She had heard similar words from him before, back when everything had fallen apart. But this time, it felt different. This time, it felt like there was more to his words, something unspoken. "I didn't expect it either," Jessica replied softly. "But here we are." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. She wasn't sure what to say next, but she knew that they couldn't just sit there pretending everything was fine. The silence stretched on, both of them lost in their thoughts, unsure of how to move forward. After what felt like an eternity, Ryan spoke again, his voice quieter this time. "There's something I've never told you, something I've been carrying with me for a long time." Jessica's curiosity was piqued, but she remained silent, waiting for him to continue. She wasn't sure if she was ready to hear whatever it was, but she couldn't stop herself from wanting to know. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan hesitated, his eyes locking with hers for the first time since they had sat down. It's about what happened between us, Jessica. It's about the reason we ended things. There's something I didn't tell you, something I've kept hidden. Jessica's heart raced as she tried to process his words. The past had always been a mystery to her, a puzzle she couldn't quite piece together. And now, it seemed that Ryan was about to reveal a part of that puzzle, a piece that had been missing for so long. She held her breath, waiting for him to continue. I didn't just walk away from you, Ryan said, his voice shaking slightly. I left because I thought I was protecting you. I thought that if I stayed, I would only hurt you more. But I was wrong. I should have told you the truth. I should have told you everything. Jessica's mind raced as she tried to understand what he was saying. Protecting her? What could he possibly mean by that? What was the truth that he had kept from her all these years? She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her mind was spinning with 1,000 questions, none of them making sense. Ryan stood up suddenly, as if unable to sit still any longer. I never wanted to hurt you, Jessica, he said, his voice trembling now. But I couldn't bear to see you suffer because of me. Jessica stood up too, the emotion in her chest threatening to spill over. She had never imagined that their reunion would lead to this, to a revelation that could change everything. But she couldn't deny that the weight of his words was too heavy to ignore. There was something more to their past, something that neither of them had been willing to face. What are you saying, Ryan? Jessica asked, her voice thick with emotion. What is this truth you're talking about? Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and sorrow. It's too late now, he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. But maybe it's time you knew. Jessica stared at Ryan, her mind racing. His words, heavy with regret, hung in the air between them. There was something about the way he spoke, something that made her heart ache, but also made her question everything she thought she knew about their past. Too late? She echoed, her voice trembling. What do you mean by that, Ryan? Ryan looked at her, his face a mixture of pain and sorrow. He took a deep breath, as if gathering the strength to finally say the words he had kept buried for so long. It's not what you think, he began, his voice low. The reason we ended things, it wasn't because I didn't love you. I did. I always did. But there was something bigger, something I didn't understand at the time, something I couldn't control. Jessica felt a knot tighten in her chest. She had always wondered why things ended so abruptly, why Ryan had walked away without any explanation. What are you saying? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What couldn't you control? Ryan hesitated, his eyes flicking to the window as if searching for the right words. It wasn't just about us. There were things happening in my life, things I didn't want you to be a part of. I thought I was protecting you by leaving, but in reality, I just made everything worse. Jessica's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to process his words. What could be so terrible that he had to leave her? Why had he thought that walking away was the right thing to do? Ryan, she said, her voice shaking. I need you to tell me everything. I need to know the truth. Ryan closed his eyes, as if steeling himself for what he was about to say. When he opened them again, his gaze was steady, but there was an undeniable sadness in his eyes. I didn't walk away because I didn't love you, he repeated, his voice filled with regret. I walked away because I thought I had to protect you from something I couldn't explain. But I should have trusted you, Jessica. I should have told you everything, but I was scared. Jessica felt her breath catch in her throat. Scared? Scared of what? She reached out, her hand trembling as she placed it on the table between them. Scared of what, Ryan? What were you hiding from me? Ryan took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world had just been placed on him. It's about my family, Jessica, he said quietly. There were things I didn't know, things that could have hurt you if you found out. I thought if I stayed, I would drag you into something you didn't deserve. I didn't want you to suffer because of me. Jessica's mind was racing, trying to piece together what he was saying. His family? What did that have to do with their relationship? What do you mean, Ryan? She asked, her voice tight with frustration. What happened? What is it you've been hiding all this time? Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with pain. I never wanted to hurt you, Jessica, he said softly. But I couldn't protect you from this. His words hung in the air, each one heavier than the last. Jessica could feel the walls closing in around her, the weight of his confession pressing down on her chest. She needed answers, but now, she wasn't sure if she was ready to hear the truth. I don't know if I can do this, Ryan, she said, her voice cracking. I don't know if I can handle whatever it is you're about to tell me. Ryan reached across the table, his hand resting on hers, his touch gentle yet firm. You can, Jessica. You deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know everything. He took another deep breath, his eyes locking with hers. I just hope you can forgive me when I tell you the truth. I never meant to hurt you. The room felt colder now, the air thick with the unspoken words that were about to change everything. Jessica didn't know what to think anymore. She had always believed that Ryan had left because of something she had done wrong, but now, it seemed there was something much darker at play. Something that was far beyond her control. Ryan sat back in his chair, his fingers trembling as he gripped the edge of the table. The weight of the words he was about to speak seemed almost unbearable. Jessica could feel her heart racing, her pulse quickening as she waited for him to continue. The silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. I never wanted you to be a part of my family's problems, Ryan began, his voice strained. But the truth is, there are things about them that I couldn't keep hidden forever. Jessica's mind raced. She had always known there was more to Ryan than he let on, but this was something she never expected. What kind of problems? She asked, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. What do you mean? Ryan's eyes met hers, his expression full of regret. My family has a history, Jessica, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. A history of things that I didn't understand until it was too late. He paused, his jaw tightening as he tried to find the right words. Jessica leaned forward, her breath catching in her throat. What history, Ryan? What are you talking about? Ryan swallowed hard. I never knew the full story, he admitted, his eyes darkening with the weight of his confession. But I found out after we broke up. I found out that my family was involved in something far more dangerous than I ever imagined. Jessica felt a chill run down her spine. Her mind was racing, trying to process what he was saying. Dangerous? What could he possibly mean? What do you mean, dangerous? She asked, her voice tight with fear. What kind of danger? Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for a way to explain. I found out about illegal dealings, things that my family was involved in, he said slowly. I didn't want you to get dragged into it. I thought if I left, I could protect you from everything they were doing. I thought if I disappeared, you'd be safe. Jessica's breath caught in her throat as she tried to process his words. Her mind was spinning with 1,000 questions, none of them making sense. Illegal dealings? She whispered, her voice barely audible. What kind of illegal dealings? Ryan looked at her, his face etched with pain. Drugs? Money laundering? The kind of things that could ruin lives. Jessica felt as though the floor had been ripped out from under her. She had always known that Ryan came from a complicated family, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice shaking. Why did you keep this from me, Ryan? Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? Ryan's eyes filled with tears, the guilt and regret in his gaze almost unbearable. I was trying to protect you, he said quietly. I thought I could handle it on my own. But I was wrong. I should have told you. I should have let you decide for yourself what you wanted to know. I'm sorry, Jessica. I'm so sorry. Jessica stood up, her hands shaking as she tried to steady herself. She could feel the tears welling up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had so many emotions swirling inside her: anger, betrayal, confusion. But most of all, she felt a deep sense of loss. The man she had loved, the man she had trusted, had kept this from her for so long. "How could you keep something like this from me?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "How could you let me go on thinking that everything was fine, that I didn't have to worry about anything?" Ryan stood up too, reaching out to her, but Jessica pulled away. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said, his voice desperate. "I never wanted you to feel this way. I just didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to make you understand." Jessica looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this, Ryan," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." Ryan's face crumpled in pain, and he reached out again, but Jessica stepped back, shaking her head. "I need time, Ryan," she whispered. "I need time to process all of this. I don't know what to do with what you've told me." The room felt colder now, the silence between them stretching on as they both tried to make sense of the truth that had just been revealed. Ryan looked at her, his heart breaking. He knew that the damage was done, that the trust they had once shared was now shattered. But he also knew that he had to do whatever it took to make things right, even if it meant facing the consequences of his past actions. Jessica didn't know what to do next. She had always believed in Ryan, trusted him with her heart. But now she wasn't sure if she could ever see him the same way again. Jessica stood there, her mind reeling from the confession Ryan had just made. She felt numb, as if everything around her had suddenly turned into a blur. The weight of his words pressed down on her chest, making it difficult to breathe. She had never imagined that the man she had loved, the man she had trusted with her heart, could be hiding something so devastating from her. The room was still, and the only sound was the faint ticking of a clock on the wall. She looked at Ryan, his face pale and filled with regret. "I didn't know, Jessica," Ryan said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to explain everything to you. But I should have tried. I should have trusted you enough to be honest." Jessica could feel the tears welling up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had cried too many times over the years, wondering why things had ended the way they had. She had always blamed herself, thinking she had somehow driven him away. But now, hearing this, everything she thought she knew felt like a lie. "You should have told me, Ryan," she said softly, her voice shaking with emotion. "You should have trusted me. We could have faced this together, but instead, you shut me out. You pushed me away and left me with nothing but questions." Ryan stepped forward, his eyes pleading with her, but Jessica took a step back, not wanting him to get any closer. "I didn't want to hurt you," Ryan said desperately. "I thought I was doing the right thing by leaving, by keeping you out of it. But now I see that I was wrong. I should have never kept this from you. I should have let you decide what you wanted to know." Jessica's chest tightened as she tried to process his words. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him how much he had hurt her, how much his secrets had torn her apart. But she didn't. Instead, she just stood there, numb, unable to move. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this," Jessica said quietly, her voice barely audible. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again." Ryan's face fell, and he reached out again, but Jessica stepped back once more, her hands trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I understand if you can't forgive me. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Jessica. I know that." Jessica shook her head, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I don't know what to do with all of this, Ryan," she whispered. "I don't know what to do with the truth you've just given me. I don't know how to make sense of it." Ryan stood there in silence, the weight of the moment hanging heavily between them. Neither of them knew what to say next. The past, with all its unanswered questions and hidden truths, had finally come to light, and neither of them was ready to face it. Jessica turned away, her back to him as she tried to steady her breathing. She could feel the anger building inside her, but also the sadness, the overwhelming sadness that came with knowing that everything she had once believed was no longer true. "I need some time, Ryan," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I need time to figure this out, to process everything. Ryan nodded slowly, his expression one of deep sorrow. I understand, he said quietly. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready to talk, ready to try and make things right. Jessica didn't respond. She couldn't. The truth was, she wasn't sure if things could ever be made right again. She wasn't sure if she could ever look at Ryan the same way, if she could ever trust him again. The man she had once loved seemed so far away now, a stranger who had kept secrets from her, secrets that had hurt them both. She walked to the door, her hands shaking as she opened it. Goodbye, Ryan, she said softly, her voice barely audible. And with that, she stepped out into the night, leaving him behind in the room, alone with the truth they had both been avoiding for so long. Jessica didn't know where to go from here. The night air was cool as she stepped outside, but it did little to calm the storm inside her. She walked aimlessly down the street, her mind spinning with the truth Ryan had just revealed. Each step felt heavier than the last, and the weight of his words, of the family secrets he had kept from her, pressed down on her chest like an anchor. She had always thought their separation had been her fault, that there was something she could have done differently. But now, it seemed there had been so much more to the story, things she had never even considered. The silence around her was almost suffocating as she continued walking, her thoughts drifting in 1,000 different directions. How could Ryan have kept this from her? How could he have made the choice to protect her by pushing her away, to make decisions for her without ever giving her the chance to choose for herself? It felt like a betrayal, and yet she wasn't sure if she was angry or heartbroken. She wasn't sure what to feel anymore. She stopped walking, standing at the edge of a small park, the lights of the city twinkling in the distance. Her thoughts kept returning to Ryan, to the man she had once loved, the man who had meant everything to her. Had he truly believed that leaving her was the right choice? Had he really thought that keeping her in the dark was the only way to protect her? Or had he simply been too afraid to face the consequences of his actions, too afraid to let her see the truth? She wasn't sure. She wished she had the answers, but they seemed so far out of reach. The only thing she knew for certain was that everything had changed. There was no going back to the way things had been before, no pretending that everything was okay. The trust they had once shared had been shattered, and even if they could rebuild it, it would never be the same. Jessica felt a tear slip down her cheek, but she wiped it away quickly, not wanting to let herself break down. She didn't have the luxury of time to wallow in her sadness. She had to keep moving forward. But how could she move forward when she didn't even know what direction to take? She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, and pulled her phone from her pocket. She knew she needed to talk to someone, to make sense of everything that had just happened. She scrolled through her contacts, her finger hovering over a name. She paused for a moment before dialing the number, hoping that whoever answered would be able to offer her some kind of clarity. The phone rang once, twice, and then a familiar voice greeted her on the other end. Jessica? Her friend's voice said. Is everything okay? Jessica didn't know how to explain it, but she tried. No, it's not okay, she said quietly. I just found out something that I wasn't prepared for. And I don't know what to do with it. Her friend was silent for a moment, letting her words sink in. Do you want to talk about it? The voice asked gently. Jessica nodded, even though her friend couldn't see her. I don't know if I can, she admitted. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about it yet. But I just need someone to listen. Her friend didn't press her for more details, simply offering a quiet reassurance. I'm here for you, Jessica. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. Jessica let out a shaky breath, feeling a small sense of relief. She didn't have all the answers, and she didn't know what the future held, but for now, she had someone to lean on. That was enough. She ended the call and looked up at the sky, the stars barely visible through the city lights. Everything felt so different, so uncertain, and yet she knew that she couldn't stay stuck in this moment forever. She had to keep moving, keep fighting. Whatever came next, she would face it, even if it meant confronting things she wasn't ready to face. As she turned to walk back down the street, her phone buzzed in her hand. A message from Ryan. She paused for a moment, staring at the screen. She wasn't sure if she was ready to hear from him yet, but part of her knew that she would eventually have to confront him again. The question was when. And when she did, would she have the strength to face him and the truth he had shared with her? Jessica sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone. The message from Ryan still glowed on the screen, waiting for her to read it. She had been avoiding it for the last hour, unsure of what to do. Her mind was still reeling from the conversation they had earlier. Part of her wanted to scream, to tell him that she never wanted to hear from him again, but another part of her knew that ignoring the truth wouldn't make it go away. She took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the screen, before finally tapping it open. Jessica, I know you need time, and I respect that. But I can't help but think that if we just talked, we could work through this. I never wanted to hurt you, and I will do anything to make things right. Please let me know when you're ready to talk. The words hit her like a wave. Ryan's sincerity, his desperation, was so clear in the message. She could almost hear the tremor in his voice, see the pain in his eyes as he wrote it. But still, she wasn't sure. Could she really forgive him for everything he had hidden from her? For the years of lies, for the secrets he had kept buried? Could she trust him again after everything? Jessica put the phone down on the bed and stood up, walking over to the window. The city lights shimmered outside, but everything felt distant. She could feel her heart pulling in two different directions. On one hand, she wanted to let go of the past, to move forward and find peace. On the other, she couldn't ignore the betrayal she felt. The weight of the truth Ryan had revealed was heavy, and no matter how much she wanted to believe in him again, the scars from the past were still fresh. She thought about what her friend had said earlier. You have to make the decision for yourself. It wasn't easy, but Jessica knew that was the only way forward. She couldn't let Ryan's mistakes dictate her future. She had to decide what was best for her, what would bring her the peace she so desperately needed. But it wasn't a decision she could make lightly. The truth Ryan had shared with her wasn't something she could just forget. It was part of him, part of their story, and no matter how hard she tried, it would always linger in the background. She turned away from the window and walked back to her bed. Her phone was still there, the message still on the screen. She picked it up again, reading it over one more time. The sincerity in Ryan's words hadn't changed. But neither had the pain. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to clear her thoughts. She had to make a choice. Could she find a way to move forward, or was the past too much to overcome? After a long pause, Jessica typed a response. Ryan, I don't know if I'm ready yet. I need more time. But I'll let you know when I am. She hit send, then sat back against the headboard, the weight of the decision still heavy on her chest. She wasn't sure if this was the right choice, but it was the only one she could make for now. Time was what she needed, time to process, time to heal. And hopefully, time to find a way to forgive. But for now, she was taking a step back, not from the truth, but from the emotional turmoil that had consumed her for so long. Whatever came next, she knew she had to find her own way. As she put the phone down, she felt a small sense of relief. The decision had been made, even if it was only temporary. She could take a breath for now. But she also knew that the hardest part of all was still ahead, facing the truth, and the man who had kept it from her. Jessica had spent the past few days in a haze, unsure of what direction to take next. The decision to respond to Ryan's message had given her a sense of relief, but it hadn't solved anything. It hadn't erased the betrayal, and it certainly hadn't brought back the trust they once shared. She couldn't stop thinking about the words Ryan had said, the confession that had shaken her to her core. Her mind kept replaying their conversation over and over again, trying to make sense of it all. What kind of future could they have after everything that had happened? Could she ever truly forgive him, or would the weight of the past always hang over them? She sat at her kitchen table, staring at the cup of coffee in front of her, untouched. The silence in the room was deafening, and it felt like the walls were closing in on her. She knew she needed to figure out what to do, but every option seemed impossible. If she forgave Ryan, if she gave him a second chance, could they rebuild what they once had? Or would the pain of the past always be there, lurking in the shadows? She had so many questions and no answers. The phone rang, breaking the silence. It was an unfamiliar number, but something told her it was Ryan. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the screen. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to keep avoiding him, but another part of her knew that she couldn't run forever. She had to face him, and figure out what came next. With a deep breath, she answered. Jessica? Ryan's voice was soft, almost tentative. I know you need time, and I respect that, but I just wanted to check in. I don't want to pressure you, but I need you to know that I'm here, whenever you're ready to talk. Jessica closed her eyes, letting his words wash over her. She could feel the sincerity in his voice, the remorse that he couldn't hide. He sounded different than he had before. He sounded like someone who had finally realized the weight of what he had done. I'm not sure what I'm ready for, Ryan, she replied, her voice quiet but steady. I don't know what to think anymore. Ryan paused, his breath catching on the other end. I understand. I know I've hurt you, and I can't take back what I did. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I should have told you everything sooner. I should have trusted you. Jessica felt a lump form in her throat. The words felt raw, genuine, but they also felt like too little, too late. How could she trust him again? How could she move forward when everything had been built on lies and secrets? Ryan, I don't know how to move forward, she said quietly. I don't know if I can forgive you. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Ryan spoke again, his voice was softer, almost broken. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't deserve that. But I'll wait for as long as you need. I'll be here, Jessica. Whenever you're ready. Jessica took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in days, she felt like she was taking a step towards something. She wasn't ready to forgive him, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to move forward. I need time, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I need to figure things out on my own. Ryan didn't say anything for a moment, then finally he spoke. I understand. Take all the time you need, Jessica. I'm not going anywhere. As she hung up the phone, Jessica let out a long breath, feeling a sense of release she hadn't expected. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she couldn't keep living in the past. Whatever decision she made, it would be hers, and hers alone. For now, that was enough. She stood up, looking out the window at the city below. There was so much uncertainty ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had the strength to face it. She didn't have all the answers, but she was ready to find them, one step at a time. Jessica spent the next few days in a quiet sort of solitude, trying to sort through her emotions and the overwhelming weight of everything that had happened. She wasn't sure if she was closer to understanding or further from the truth, but one thing was clear, things couldn't stay the way they were. The quiet was almost too much to bear. The phone was silent, her inbox empty, and she found herself alone with nothing but her thoughts. She told Ryan she needed time, and time was something she needed more than anything right now. But the more she thought about it, the more the silence felt suffocating. She didn't know if she was ready to face Ryan again, but there was something pulling her toward the truth, something that whispered in the back of her mind that perhaps she could find a way to heal from all of this. Her thoughts shifted to their past, to the moments they had shared before the lies, before the betrayal. She could still remember the way he used to look at her, the warmth in his eyes, the comfort in his touch. It was hard to reconcile that man with the one who had kept so many secrets from her. Was it even possible to bridge that gap? Could they ever get back to that place? But as much as she wanted to, she wasn't sure she could. She wasn't sure if she could forget everything that had been hidden from her for so long. The questions, the doubts, they were still there, swirling in her mind like a storm she couldn't outrun. And yet, despite everything, there was a small part of her that wondered if they could find a way to move forward, to rebuild something from the wreckage of their past. Maybe it wouldn't be easy, and maybe it wouldn't look anything like it did before, but maybe it was worth trying. Jessica stood up from the couch, a decision beginning to take shape in her mind. She had spent enough time questioning, enough time running from the pain. It was time to face it, to confront Ryan and the truth they both had avoided for so long. She needed answers, and not just from him, but from herself as well. What did she really want? Did she want to try again? Or was it better to let go and move on? She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, and she didn't have all the answers, but she was ready to start finding them. With a deep breath, she reached for her phone. It felt heavy in her hand, the weight of the decision she was about to make. She opened a new message, her fingers hovering over the screen for a moment as she gathered her thoughts. Finally, she typed, "Ryan, I'm ready to talk. I don't know where this will go, but we need to face everything." She hit send, and immediately, a wave of emotion washed over her. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a while, she felt a sense of clarity. The silence, the uncertainty, it had all been overwhelming, but now she was ready to face whatever came next. The future was unknown, and it terrified her, but she couldn't keep running. She was ready to face the truth, no matter how difficult it might be. She didn't know if she could ever fully forgive Ryan, but she was willing to try. She had to. For herself. She looked out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance, and for the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe again.